What if I told you the worst crimes of World War II didn't happen in Europe, and the doctors responsible walked away completely free? It's a story so dark, it's often left out of the history books. In the 1930s, deep in Japanese-occupied Manchuria, a secret division was formed. Officially, it was called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department, Unit 731. Its stated mission was to protect soldiers from disease. But that was a carefully constructed lie, behind the locked doors of their sprawling complex. A nightmare was unfolding. The unit wasn't preventing epidemics, it was engineering them. Under the command of a brilliant but ruthless microbiologist, General Shiro Ishii, Unit 731 became a factory of horrors. Their test subjects weren't animals. They were thousands of captured Chinese, Korean, Russian, and Allied prisoners of war, referred to only as maruta, or logs. The experiments they conducted are almost too monstrous to comprehend. They performed live vivisections on conscious prisoners, removing organs to study the effects of trauma without anesthesia. They would amputate limbs and try to reattach them. On the opposite side of the body, they deliberately infected people with diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea to observe their progression, to study frostbite. They would take prisoners outside in sub-zero temperatures, douse their limbs with water, and let them freeze solid. Then they'd experiment with different thawing methods, sometimes by pouring boiling water on the frozen flesh or simply clubbing the limb to see if it would shatter. They didn't just confine their horrors to the lab. Unit 731 developed advanced biological weapons. They cultivated fleas infected with the bubonic plague and packed them into ceramic bombs. These bombs were then dropped by low-flying planes over Chinese cities and villages, unleashing devastating plagues that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians long after the war ended. They also contaminated wells and food supplies with cholera and typhoid. Their goal was to create the perfect biological weapon, and they used entire communities as their testing grounds. So, what happened to these men? These doctors and scientists, who committed such unspeakable atrocities? You might expect war crimes trials, like those in Nuremberg. But that's not what happened. When Japan surrendered in 1945, the United States was desperate to gain an edge in the looming Cold War against the Soviet Union. The data from Unit 731's human experiments was seen as invaluable, a scientific treasure trove that couldn't be replicated. In a shocking secret deal, the U.S. government granted General Ishii and his top researchers full immunity from prosecution in exchange for their gruesome data on biological warfare and human endurance. Their crimes were effectively erased. They were never brought to justice. Many of them went on to have distinguished careers in post-war Japan, becoming deans of medical schools, heads of pharmaceutical companies, and prominent figures in the medical establishment. No trials, no justice, no public acknowledgement for decades. The truth was buried in exchange for scientific secrets. History is so much darker and more complex than we're often taught. The stories that get left out are sometimes the most important ones. Thanks for watching. If you want to uncover more hidden chapters of our past, make sure to subscribe.